I can't even believe I still get to do this. I just never dreamed it would last this long. I had 3 teenagers who are now all in their 20s, and they would have loved me to put out a record and be gone.
For decades, Amy Grant has been a voice people turn to for comfort, hope, and healing. That's why the news now hitting her fans feels especially painful. Behind the smiles and quiet strength, something deeply emotional has been unfolding away from the spotlight. The kind of moment that suddenly makes everything feel fragile. And as more details emerge, supporters everywhere are left wondering how much heartbreak one person can quietly carry before it finally shows. The painful truth Amy finally shared. In May of 2026, Amy Grant sat down with People magazine and broke the silence she had been quietly holding for almost 4 full years. She admitted something her loyal fans had been silently fearing since the summer of 2022. The recovery was not over. It had never actually been over for her. Behind the warm smiles on stage and the carefully edited Christmas residency posts she shared online, she was still relearning her own life, one quiet morning at a time. The woman who once sold over 30 million records around the world was learning how to trust her own body again from scratch. She told the magazine that her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it inside her own ears the day she climbed back onto a bicycle in Aspen, Colorado. In March of 2026, 2 old friends rode carefully beside her on the quiet mountain trail. One friend rode steadily in front of her. One friend rode protectively behind her. They moved slowly together because that was all she could really manage at that fragile point. She called the entire ride a personal leap of faith. She also admitted she still wakes up some mornings and gasps when someone casually reminds her of a memory she used to know by heart. She opened up further about the small, daily moments most people never notice anymore. She talked about forgetting the names of friends she has known for decades. She talked about staring at familiar handwritten lyrics and feeling like a stranger reading them. She talked about Vince Gill quietly making her morning coffee while she rebuilt her confidence one slow conversation at a time. Her voice cracked during parts of the interview itself. Then came the even harder news for her audience around the world. On the 8th of May in 2026, she released her first album of brand new material in 13 long years. She named the project The Me That Remains. The title was not chosen by some clever record label marketing team. It was a confession straight from her soul. It was the honest answer to a question she kept asking Vince Gill in their kitchen at night during the worst months of recovery. What if this is all I get back from this? To understand why those quiet words cut so deep, you must go back to the quiet road in Nashville, where everything she knew about herself disappeared in only a few seconds. The accident the public never fully understood. On the 27th of July in 2022, Amy Grant climbed onto her bicycle for what should have been an ordinary morning ride near the Harpeth Hills Golf Course in Nashville. She rode alongside a close friend on a peaceful route she had taken many times before that quiet summer day. Her helmet was strapped on tightly that morning. Her speed was relaxed and steady. Her chosen route felt completely familiar to her body. Then her front tire suddenly struck a single hidden pothole in the middle of the road. She flipped violently over the handlebars and slammed hard onto the rough pavement below her. She lay completely unconscious for nearly 10 full minutes before paramedics arrived at the chaotic scene. Doctors at Vanderbilt University Medical Center later confirmed she had suffered a traumatic brain injury and a severe concussion. What the public did not learn for many months afterwards is that the violent trauma also activated something even stranger inside her throat that same day. A small cyst, medically called a thyroglossal duct cyst, had been sitting quietly near her vocal cords since the day she was born 61 years earlier. The crash impact suddenly pushed it into what her surgical team carefully described as a dangerous state of hypergrowth. By January of 2023, she was back inside an operating room for a 5-hour throat surgery to remove the dangerous growth from her neck. She later told E! News that she had to actually relearn how to sing from scratch all over again. Her muscle memory was completely scrambled inside her brain. Words she had performed thousands of times suddenly felt like a complete stranger's foreign vocabulary. For her Christmas residency that holiday year, she had to rely on a teleprompter even for songs she had personally written herself decades earlier. She forgot lyrics inside Baby Baby. She stumbled awkwardly inside Tennessee Christmas. Her band members watched her quietly during sound checks and prayed she would find her way back. Her family was equally frightened during those first uncertain weeks at home. Vince Gill canceled tour dates to stay beside her. Their daughter Karina visited every single afternoon without fail. Her sisters drove over from across Nashville to read her old letters aloud and gently jog her tired memory. The recovery felt slow and painful and deeply uncertain for everyone watching her struggle. Yet the deeper story she carried inside her body was about to grow even more complicated because of something that happened 2 full years before the bicycle accident ever occurred. The hidden danger had been silently waiting inside her chest for much longer than anyone ever imagined possible. The encroaching killer hidden inside her. In late 2019, Amy Grant accompanied Vince Gill to what should have been an ordinary routine cardiology appointment at his doctor's office in Nashville. Dr. John Bright Cage examined Vince carefully and found absolutely nothing concerning. Then the doctor looked across the room at Amy, who had been sitting quietly. He paused for a moment. He said only 5 words that turned her entire world upside down. "I want to see you." She had no symptoms. She felt physically strong. She had been performing dozens of concerts each year. Doctors quickly discovered she had been living with a rare congenital heart defect called partial anomalous pulmonary venous return. Some of the blood vessels inside her chest had been attached to the wrong location her entire life. Dr. Cage quietly pulled Vince aside afterwards and explained the painful truth to him. Amy would feel completely fine until one day she would not, and that one day would be catastrophic and possibly even fatal. On the 3rd of June in 2020, she walked into an open-heart surgery during the height of the global pandemic. The scar still runs straight down the center of her chest today. She later told Robin Roberts at Good Morning America that her birth defect had been an encroaching killer and she had absolutely no idea it had been hiding there. She posted pictures of her healing scar on Instagram. She wrote that prayer had changed everything for her. She believed she had survived the worst moment her body would ever face. She was wrong. 24 months later, she would be flying over the handlebars of a bicycle in Nashville. The deeper question is how she found the strength to keep getting back up. The answer to that question reaches all the way back to the very beginning. The Nashville heiress nobody saw coming. Most fans assume Amy Grant emerged from a humble Christian music background somewhere in the South. The truth is something completely different. She was born on the 25th of November in 1960 in Augusta, Georgia. Her family moved back to Nashville while she was still a very young baby. Her great-grandfather was a powerful man named A.M. Burton. He founded the Life and Casualty Insurance Company of Tennessee back in 1903. The family built the famous WLAC radio and television empire across the South. They quietly gave away an estimated $100 million to colleges in his lifetime. Amy spent much of her childhood on a private property the family called Burton Farm. The land sat less than 10 miles from downtown Nashville. She rode horses through hilly green woods. She swam inside fishing ponds. She played hide-and-seek across the acres of rolling property her cousins owned. The family eventually sold the precious land in 1985. It became the Burton Hills development you can still drive through today. Her father, Dr. Burton Payne Grant, was a respected radiation oncologist who co-founded Radiation Oncology Associates of Tennessee. Her mother, Gloria, came from another wealthy Nashville family on the other side of the bloodline. The Grants attended the conservative Ashwood Church of Christ. The tradition was strict and traditional. Worship music was sung without any instruments at all. Dancing was generally frowned upon inside the community. Yet Amy's oldest sister, Kathy, came home from college in Boston one summer with a stack of new Jesus hippie music records. A small coffee shop on Music Row began hosting Saturday night concerts for local teenagers. Amy was far too young to drive, but she begged her parents for rides downtown. Something deep inside her began lighting up that nobody around her could quiet down. She was about to write her very first song, and a Sunday school teacher with free studio time was about to change everything. The phone call that built her empire. In 1976, a 15-year-old Amy Grant quietly wrote a song called Mountaintop in her bedroom. She performed it for the very first time at Harpeth Hall, the elite all-girls preparatory school in Nashville, where her family had enrolled her. Later that same year, she decided to record a simple demo tape as a surprise Christmas gift for her parents. Her Sunday school teacher at Belmont Church of Christ was a college student named Brown Bannister. He had access to free studio time as part of a recording class assignment. He kindly agreed to help her record her original songs. The owner of that small recording studio was a young producer named Chris Christian. While Brown was quietly dubbing the demo onto a cassette tape for Amy's parents, Chris happened to overhear her singing through the studio control room speakers. He immediately picked up the office telephone and called Stan Moser at Word Records over in Texas. He played the demo tape through the open phone line. 5 weeks before her 16th birthday, Amy Grant had her first record contract. She later admitted that Word told her she had absolutely no wow factor in her voice. They told her she was just okay. Not great by any means, but she sounded genuinely sincere. That sincerity sold around 50,000 copies of her debut album in 1977. By 1982, her album Age to Age sat at #1 on the Billboard Inspirational Chart for 85 straight weeks. It became the very first Christian album by a solo artist ever to be certified platinum. She won her first Grammy Award soon after. She was only 21 years old at the time. She had also just married a young songwriter named Gary Chapman, who wrote the title track of her second album. On the surface, their wedding looked like a fairy tale. Yet behind the scenes, a much darker story was already quietly forming inside their home. The marriage that hid the real story. Amy Grant and Gary Chapman married on the 19th of June in 1982. The Christian world celebrated them as a perfect golden couple at the time. The reality inside their home was painfully different. In November of 1997, Gary gave an astonishing interview to Texas Monthly magazine. He told journalist Skip Hollandsworth he had been struggling with cocaine and marijuana addiction since the age of 20. That was years before he ever met Amy. He confessed to living two completely separate lives with two different sets of friends entirely. Amy had quietly told CCM magazine in earlier years that the first 4 months of her marriage felt like one long yawn. They had 3 beautiful children together over the next several years. Their son, Matthew Garrison Chapman, came first. Their daughter, Gloria Mills Chapman, was born on the 18th of December in 1989. Their youngest daughter, Sarah Cannon Chapman, followed shortly after her sister. When little Millie was only 6 weeks old, Amy sat down and wrote a song inspired by her tiny daughter's sleeping face. That song was Baby Baby. It exploded across the radio in 1991 as the lead single from Heart in Motion. The album would eventually sell over 5 million copies in the United States alone. It reached number 10 on the Billboard 200. It produced 5 top 20 pop hits, including the number 1 Baby Baby and the number 2 Every Heartbeat. The crossover transformed her into one of the biggest pop stars on the entire planet. Yet success at that level could not fix what was already broken at home with Gary. In 1993, Amy filmed a Christmas television special in Oklahoma. A rising country singer named Vince Gill happened to be on the same bill that particular evening. He noticed her walking in with worry written across her tired face. He told her to unknit her brow and come sit beside him. That single moment quietly lit a fuse that nobody around them saw burning. The explosion would arrive 6 full years later. It would nearly destroy her entire career. The scandal, the recovery, and the welcome table. By the spring of 1999, Amy Grant officially filed for divorce from Gary Chapman. The Christian community completely lost its collective mind over the news. People magazine put the entire story on its cover that November. Gary told the magazine that Amy and Vince Gill had what he openly called an inappropriate friendship since the beginning of 1994. Vince's first wife, Janice Oliver, was reportedly devastated by the entire situation. Her closest friends went on record, saying Janice had tried desperately to save her own marriage. Christian radio stations across the country quietly pulled Amy's music from rotation. Christian bookstores quickly pulled her records from their shelves. The CCM magazine editor, Lindy Warren, told reporters the backlash was unlike anything the gospel music genre had ever witnessed before. Amy defended herself inside the pages of CCM magazine that same year. She said that sometimes an innocent party can simply walk into a situation like a big, bright spotlight. What they do is reveal the painful dynamics that were already there in existence. She married Vince Gill on the 10th of March in 2000. Their beautiful daughter, Corina Grant Gill, was born exactly 1 year and 2 days after the wedding ceremony. They eventually settled on a 450-acre farm just outside Franklin, Tennessee. Slowly, her loyal audience began coming back to her over time. In 2003, she was inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. In 2006, she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then came another quiet earthquake that shocked the Christian music world completely. In July of 2021, Amy appeared on Apple Music's Proud Radio with host Hunter Kelly. She said something that Christian radio had never actually expected to hear from her own mouth on air. Gay, straight, it does not matter at all. Who loves us more than the one who made us? She told listeners how important it really was to set a welcome table for everyone. In November 2022, she and Vince hosted her niece's wedding to her female partner on the very same hillside where they themselves were married years earlier. Franklin Graham publicly criticized her decision in a long online post. She quietly refused to fight back against him in public. 1 month later, she received the prestigious Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C. Brandi Carlile, Sheryl Crow, and B.B. and C.C. Winans all performed beautifully during her musical tribute. She became the very first contemporary Christian artist ever to receive that honor. 7 months later, she would be lying unconscious on the asphalt of a Nashville road, fighting for her own life. When you trace the whole story carefully from start to finish, a clear picture begins forming in your mind. The young Nashville heiress, who was once told she had no wow factor, sold over 30 million records worldwide. She survived a hidden heart defect that medical experts said should have killed her without any warning. She survived a traumatic brain injury that scrambled her ability to sing her own songs back to her own audience. She survived a public divorce scandal that nearly ended her entire music career overnight. She buried her loving mother, Gloria, who slowly faded into Lewy body dementia in 2011. She buried her devoted father, Dr. Burton Grant, who had declined for nearly 10 long years before passing in 2018. She kept showing up anyway, through every storm that came. She kept writing through unbearable pain. She kept loving the very people her own church told her not to love. The Me That Remains is not just a clever album title for marketing purposes. It is the only thing she truly has left to give the world today. And somehow, against every possible expectation, it really is everything she ever needed. So let us know what you think about Amy Grant's incredible journey in the comments below. Do you believe her story changes how we see faith, fame, and second chances in the modern world today?